Welcome to the Awesemo Early Bird Podcast. I'm your old pal Emac coming to you to talk about some Tuesday NBA basketball with one Adam Ship My Money Share as we give you the Awesemo First Look Early Bird Podcast. Adam, talk to me. How was your birthday weekend, first and foremost? Happy birthday, belated, for those that missed it. Adam's birthday was this weekend. He's nearing another milestone. Way to go.
Yeah, it was good. Went out with some friends, hit some bars in Annapolis, had a good time. Lost my voice, still kind of slowly getting that back. It kind of cut out again like halfway through the Deeper Dive show with Lofty today. So hopefully it gets through this podcast.
I didn't watch all of the show today, so I must have missed that. But I can just imagine Lofty saying, fella, can you speak up? We can hardly hear you.
I probably start to sound like Lofty. Like I get that like raspy voice going.
Oh, good times. Lofty, we love you. I know you're not listening to this, but we love you just the same. Let's talk about this. We have 8 games on a Tuesday. Wow, it has been a while since we have seen that. We also have, 3, 6, 9, 10 games on Wednesday. So we're back to a goosed up schedule. We've got 4 games on Thursday, so it's going to be a pretty robust week. There are 8 games on Saturday, only 6 will be on that main slate. And with the NFL playoffs getting ready to wrap up here, you'll start to see a beefier Sunday slate. So let's get to talking about this. We've got some teams that are on a back-to-back, those that play Monday night. We are recording this on Monday night. Denver is at home. They will be on the road Tuesday. Sacramento also at home. They will be on the road Tuesday. And then teams that are playing Tuesday but will be playing again on Wednesday are Indiana, both on the road, Atlanta, both on the road, and then Cleveland and Phoenix are home on Tuesday, on the road on Wednesday. Looking for any injury updates here. Nothing too major. A little bit concerned with Devin Booker. I'm sure we'll have relatively decent news from him. He's got a great matchup going against Sacramento, but he did not practice on Monday, and he was left the game early Saturday or Sunday, I guess, with back spasms. So he's dealt with this in the past, so we'll have to see if he plays or not. We should see Jimmy Butler back. He was dealing with flu-like symptoms for a couple games, but he should be back. Gary Harris and Paul Millsap will be playing on a back-to-back. You'll want to see if they both stay in the starting lineup or if we get any word about a minutes limit for them. I don't think we will have one for Millsap, but not sure about Harris because he only has, I think this will be his 3rd time playing. So he's been out for some time with his hip injury. And then let's see, Miles Turner hurt his shoulder, and Jeremy Lamb has been dealing with a hamstring injury, so you'll have to wait and see for news out of shoot around when it comes to that. Any other ones, Adam? Iman Shumpert is out Monday night, but he is expected to return on Tuesday. He sprained his finger.
Yeah, that sounds like everything.
Good God, I guess there was more than I thought, but nothing. These are all kind of. It's not like LeBron. It's not like Chris Paul, etc. I mean, those are the known ones, but it's not like someone who is making an all-star team that we're going to be waiting on news for outside of Booker. So, and I'm just going to proceed like I don't think he's going to play from that standpoint. But let's go position by position. We have a ton of stuff to talk about here. Take it away with point guards. At the top here, you have one Russell Westbrook along with Steph Curry, Kemba Walker. There's some intriguing names here. What is popping for you with your first look?
Yeah, I like the spot for Westbrook. There was news coming out of Minnesota after their practice today that Ryan Saunders, their new head coach, the late Flip Saunders' son, the emphasis at practice was on the offensive end to play at a faster pace. So that if that happens, that translates to more possessions for Oklahoma City, who obviously already is a very fast-paced team, one of the fastest in the league, but maybe a little bit faster-paced game than otherwise we would have gotten had Thibodeau still been the coach here for Minnesota. So, Westbrook, I think, a really good play, obviously. The usage still down a little bit, dealing with Paul George having an absolutely phenomenal season has made it so Westbrook doesn't have to carry the team quite as much as he has in previous years, but, still a perfectly fine spot for him. Ben Simmons in a great matchup against Washington, I think will probably be a good play, especially on FanDuel. You have Jimmy Butler not on the injury report anymore, but it's still a Washington team that does not rebound well, does not defend well. So it's basically a triple-double waiting to happen for Simmons.
Oh, boy. Doesn't doesn't rebound well, doesn't defend well, or without John Wall. It's painful year for the Wizards. Kind of interesting here. I'm just double checking. Yahoo is running a $100,000 tournament. If you have not yet signed up for Yahoo, when you make your first deposit, even if you already have a Yahoo account, if it's your first deposit in the DFS side, you can get a $30 deposit match from Yahoo if you use the promo code AWESEMO, and that will be available in Yahoo Player Points, which can be used immediately in any contest. I was just looking over here. Russell Westbrook stands out head and shoulders above everybody. He's at $52. Curry at 43. Simmons at 41. That's a little spendy there for him. Kemba Walker, 35. That's kind of a nice price. And then we'll have to see what's going on with De'Aaron Fox. He's been dealing with, he had a sore shoulder, and then I think he hurt his rib or something on his chest. He got hit again. So he's just been dealing with a bunch of nagging injuries. So we'll have to see how he comes out of Monday night's game. But interesting matchup for him going against Phoenix. Coming down the middle of the price list here, Adam, as we get down to our bargain guys. Any thoughts on Tomas Satoransky? 5,400 on DK. He has averaged 21 DK points in his last two. That's a far cry from the 43 and 35 he had in the two games prior to that. What do you got here for us in the cheapies?
Yeah, he's starting to come back to earth, which I think, is to be expected. He's never been a great per minute producer. He's just a guy who he's a better real life player than he is a fantasy player, but he's like a 3/4 of a fantasy point per minute guy. So I don't think it's too surprising that he's coming back to earth here. The price tag is still expensive enough where I don't feel the need to force a ton of him into my lineups. If I get some, that's fine. He should play around 30, maybe a little bit more, but certainly not someone that I feel the need to force in there. Down towards the bottom, it's kind of thin. Like Dennis Schroeder's down to 5,100. I don't mind that against Minnesota. He has been really bad lately, but you still should get somewhere around 28 minutes out of him at only $5,100. I think there's some value there.
All right. One guy we'll have to see how the Knicks rotation shakes out. They're one of the other teams on a back-to-back. They've got, let's see here, Trey Burke at 3,400. And they're going from Portland all the way down to Golden State. That's an intriguing one. We'll have to see what it's up with. I think it's Niklina who's out.
Yeah, Ntilikina's out.
Okay, so that is one to keep an eye on there. But there should be plenty of value popping up throughout the day. If we don't get some immediate obvious ones, we probably will by the time lock rolls around with 8 games here. I'm not too worried about it. Moving over to the 2 guard. Oh, actually, I do want to talk about one guy, Kyle Lowry. He is back. He had missed 9 out of 10 games, and he came back on, let's see, I always lose track of days, Sunday, and he played 31 and a half minutes. That is a good sign. He has a nice matchup against Atlanta. I don't know how long Atlanta will stay in the game against Toronto, but at 7,700, is that something you would consider, assuming that Kawhi is going to play as well?
Yeah, I think that it's fine, but you just have to keep in mind the hit that Lowry takes playing alongside Kawhi. You have his usage rate drop down to around 18%. He just isn't as productive when Kawhi's on the floor. And then on top of that, he did say after the game on Sunday that his back was sore for a couple moments, and then it's something that's not going to go completely away. So, while he is expected to play, just keep in mind that he apparently is still dealing with some soreness, and back injuries are something that, can just kind of pop up from time to time and cause problems during games. So, there is risk. It's still obviously a great matchup against Atlanta, but Kawhi combined with the fact that he's still, banged up a little bit makes it a little risky. Like I feel better about the Aaron Fox for $500 less against Phoenix than Lowry in the spot against Atlanta.
Okay. Good points there. Speaking of De'Aaron Fox, his backcourt mate, Buddy Hield. What has happened? But I'm actually actively putting Buddy Hield into rosters now. This was not something we did when he was with New Orleans. This was not something we did when he first came over here to Sacramento. But Adam, it seemingly he's put it all together and is becoming much more of a complete player. He's not a complete disaster on defense anymore like he once was. And he's dropping the 3-pointers. His last 4 games, 8, 5, 5, and 4. That is really, really cool. His price is coming up somewhat but he's been relatively steady at just below 7,000 for the last little bit. I'm starting to trust him. This is the first time he's crested over that number. He's at 7,400. How are you feeling about Buddy Hield? Something I never would have thought I would say at this price point.
It's tough for me now, especially on DraftKings where his price tag's up to 7,400. It's tough for me to pay more money for Buddy Hield than for De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron Fox is just a better point per minute producer. They play similar minutes. On FanDuel, I think where you have to roster the 2 shooting guards, maybe it's a little bit easier to get to Hield. But the price tag's gotten to a point on DraftKings where I don't anticipate him being a priority for me just because I can get to Kings players that I like for less money.
All right, over on Yahoo, he is checking in at $29. Players and similarly priced to him at the small forward position would be Jimmy Butler at 31, Danilo Gallinari at 28. Do you like either of those guys more than Buddy Hield?
Yeah,
and I know we switch positions. We'll go back to shooting guard, but I wanted this comparison.
Yeah, so I mean, Butler against the Wizards is nice. I think it's comparable to Hield. Like they should play similar minutes. Butler's not a super high usage guy, but it is a nice. It should be a fast-paced game against Washington against a bad defense. I think that they're pretty similar. I'd give the edge to Butler.
All right, how do you feel about Bogey Bogdanovic?
Yeah, he's another one that he's cheaper than Hield by $1,500 on DraftKings. If he gets the start again for Shumpert, obviously we'll have to see. Or you said Shumpert's expected back for this one.
That's what the early news is. It was just a sprained finger. But
okay,
it's the Kings. Who knows?
Right. So if Shumpert's back, then it gets kind of tough to prioritize Bogdanovic because his price tag has risen. He's up to $5,900, and that's in part he's been playing well, but he also gets a few extra minutes when Shumpert is out. So now you have him at 30 minutes instead of 34 with a rising price tag. It becomes a spot where I'm okay with it if I get some, but it's not a priority.
All right. Looking over to Cleveland, speaking of another team that is just a mess, a disaster, if you will. Alec Burks has been starting. He started, 6 out of the last 7 games. He's getting around 30 minutes a game. That's reasonable. He gets to take a bunch of shots because who else is going to there? And he's at 4,700. He's going to be right around that break point where he starts to fall out of the crunches because I think he'll get – I'm projecting him right now, or the projections I'm using, I should say, have him at about 5 points per 1,000. What do you think about Burks?
I hate Cleveland, and I hate taking guys against Indiana. Cleveland has enough bodies where they don't have to play huge minutes, and then Indiana is just such a good defensive team. I think Burks' price tag has come up enough to where there's not a ton of excess upside for him, so not something I'm going to be too excited to get to here.
All right, this may be a little tougher of a position here. Let's see. Oh, Cameron Payne may be signing a contract with Cleveland, a 10-day contract after he was waived. Here's the other thing that's crazy. The Cavaliers signed Pat McCaw, or they brought him in, or I don't know exactly what they did. They signed an offer sheet with him, but they're going to waive him, it sounds like. This is
the whole Pat McCaw thing's pretty interesting.
I don't fully understand that because he's sat out all year because he's said all along he wants to be paid, and Golden State was like, well, we'll match whatever somebody offers you. And they didn't match this. And right. now Cleveland's like, yeah, I'm not so sure. We don't really want it to be a guaranteed deal. What?
Yeah, I don't understand how the contracts work, but it's been interesting just with his holdout and then the whole Cleveland thing.
Yeah, so what's going to happen is the most likely he's going to go through waivers, and anybody will have a chance to sign him, and then that would be a guaranteed contract. I know it's something to do with this time of the year, a certain number of weeks into the season or something along those lines. But otherwise it would be a non-guaranteed, and that's why you can just see people get waived a fair amount of the time. So what happens is if he goes through waivers, then anybody can sign him. So and they said that's when the playoff contenders will probably get involved. So we'll have to see. Yeah, it's just confusing as heck. But I thought, hey, that's a good landing spot for him. He'll probably get some minutes. And then the next thing I read a couple days later was, yeah, they're going to waive him. So,
yeah.
Bizarre. But back to the task at hand. Looking still in the discounts as we're getting on out of here. Gary Harris would be nice at 5,400. Again, have to pay attention to any news about potential limits on a back-to-back since he was out for such a long time. And then DeAndre Bembry. Good God, I'm going to have to bring him up. He's hit or miss, but he is – I mean, I think Bazemore's thought Bazemore was hurt. So Bembry started the last game, played 27 minutes. He's still been playing about in the mid to upper 20s over the last half a dozen games, even if he's coming off the bench. But he's, on a little scoring binge for him, and that's what it's what most of his fantasy value is based upon here. But 17 points, NBA points, 19 in the last 2 games. He's chipping in a couple rebounds, a couple assists. Is he someone that is going to make some early placeholder value for you?
I'd rather play Schroeder at a similar price point. I mean, Schroeder's 51, Bembry's 46. You're going to get probably 28 to 30 minutes from Bembry, like 26 to 28 from Schroeder. I think Schroeder's just the better producer in a better matchup. So, yeah, I'd rather just try and find that money.
All right. Well, let's get on to some fun here. We got a couple good players. So cleanse the palate. We'll have a nice discussion here. Kevin Durant, 10,100 on DraftKings. Paul George, 10,300. Wow, I did not expect those two guys to be over the 5-figure barrier, but Paul George has just been absolutely outstanding. I'm doing a bunch of these best ball drafts, Adam, for midseason contests, and I've been picking him as early as the 5th round or 5th overall pick, which is just crazy. And but I think he's going to keep this up. Arguably, and I'm not the first person to say this, but arguably he's been more productive from a fantasy perspective than Russell Westbrook. But now the price is damn near matching Westbrook. What do you want to do with Durant and George? Because they look like they're going to be 2 of the top choices on Tuesday for us.
Yeah, it's kind of become a tricky spot because for a while you were really getting a discount on Paul George, even though it was more expensive than we were used to paying for him. But like you mentioned, over the last month, he's produced almost an identical fantasy point per minute average as Westbrook. So when we were getting him for like $2,000 less expensive, it was a nice discount. But now that his price tag's getting into the same ballpark as Westbrook, you kind of have to, I think, give weight to more so to historical data and the fact that Westbrook has earned this price range for years, whereas for George it's based on less than half of a season. So the position is weak, which gives George more value, but it's tough for me to pay more money for Paul George than for Kevin Durant or Kawhi Leonard against Atlanta. Not to say that he hasn't earned it up to this point this season. It's just that in terms of ceilings, I think that he's comparable to Durant.
Okay, and I agree with that. And one other thing I wanted to add there is he's right around there. So this particular format I'm playing, it's best ball. They take your best player each week. You start 3 forwards, 3 guards, and a center. It's over there on draft. You only count 1 center, and then there's 1 flex spot. So it's kind of devalued center somewhat. But I've been picking George and alternating between him and Karl Anthony Towns, which is hilarious and something I would not have expected. But basically him and George and Westbrook, as long as I'm in the draft, both are gone by the end of the 5th pick or by the 5th or 6th pick. So it's been kind of interesting seeing that because that's not something I would have expected going into that. So I just wanted to give people a little bit more perspective that positionally and how they're doing the scoring makes a difference on that for where you'd bump them up. Because if I was just doing a regular NBA fantasy draft, I'd probably still have him right around the top 10, maybe just outside it. So anyway, back to daily fantasy. Looking at the small forward spot here, Adam, you've got Tobias Harris, you've got Danilo Gallinari. Their prices are coming together, 7,600 and 7,300 respectively on DraftKings. You've got Josh Richardson, 6,400 going against Denver. That's an intriguing price point. And then I'm going to say it, Kevin Knox, he is on a road back-to-back, so up to see how many minutes he's going to play. Any of these mid-tier guys seem to stand out amongst their peers.
Knox has just been playing monster minutes, and it's been regardless of the score also. He's getting a ton of run in blowouts. He's getting a ton of run in competitive games. He hasn't been that productive on a per-minute basis, averaging like 0.78 DraftKings points per minute over the last month. So, that's not perfect, and it is a tough matchup against a good Golden State defense. But Golden State does play fast, and if you're going to get that many minutes from Knox, who is someone that can have success in transition, then I don't mind him at that price tag at all. I think that Marvin Williams, where he is small forward eligible, is an interesting play. He's getting time at center. It's a nice matchup against the Clippers. The Clippers, I think there's a decent chance that Marvin Williams actually closes this game at center against Danilo Gallinari. So Williams, at a $5,300 price tag on DraftKings with small forward eligibility is nice as well.
So in 11 games since moving into the starting lineup, you said massive minutes, but this is just, I want to point this out to everybody listening along. In the 11 games since he's been a starter, he has been below 36 minutes twice. One of those was 35, and one of those was 33. The 33 was the first game that he moved into the starting rotation. Otherwise, he's been 37, 36, 41, 37, 38, 39, 36, 37, 42. These are some big numbers. That's like LeBron-style numbers. It's James Harden-esque, if you will. But yeah, the 0.7 fantasy points per minute, we need him to get these monster minutes to do well. But he's out there, and if he, drops his shots, if he lucks into, some steals, etc., all of a sudden you can pop for a nice score. So that one's just one to keep an eye on there. Looking at power forward here, we've got John Collins against Toronto. He is at 6,900. That is a nice price there. Draymond at 72 going against the Knicks. And then Larry Nance Jr., 58. So we've got some disparate pricing there. But Collins and Green are similarly priced. I always lean towards Collins, but how do you like him in this matchup going against Pascal Siakam and Ibaka?
Yeah, difficult front court to match up against, but I think the price tag more than makes up for it. The price tag's falling. He should play around 32 minutes, assuming Atlanta can remotely stay in this game, which, obviously is a kind of tough assumption to make. But, I think that the price tag is more than fair for Collins, who actually is a good player. It's not like he's, the best that Atlanta has. He's actually a competent NBA player, and I would expect him to, do well enough for this price tag.
Yeah, and the last couple of games he played 27-ish minutes per game. Two of the three have been blowouts. One, Atlanta, because hey, it's the NBA, beat Miami, and then the other one they got their ass kicked in Milwaukee. This one is up in Toronto. Toronto is 14-point favorites at the moment. Speaking of wild things happening in the NBA, Adam, there are only 7 teams right now that have a winning record on the road. How did Washington go into Oklahoma City and just control that game?
I have no idea. And I didn't see the game when they played it, but I caught some of the replay when I was eating lunch, and I saw the very beginning of it. And it started out exactly like you would expect it to. Like, Washington looked sloppy as hell. Oklahoma City was just dunking at will. And then, I don't know, somehow Washington took control.
Yeah, that was your happy birthday gift from the Wizards. Oh gosh. Anyway, that's going to kind of clean it up, I guess, for us. Using it as a transition, I really don't want to take Thomas Bryant against Joel Embiid and the 76ers. The last 2 games, his minutes have come down dramatically. He played 21 and 23 minutes, which is a far cry from the mid-30s that we had seen for a couple games there. How do you feel about him, or is there anybody else we have not yet touched on at power forward that stands out?
So at power forward, I'm not looking to go to Bryant here. I think that this is a matchup where he actually could lose substantial minutes to Jan Mahinmi, which subsequently makes me actually interested in Mahinmi in tournaments at, dirt cheap price tag with virtually no ownership. It's Bryant has kind of gotten exposed by either centers in the pick and roll or just offensively minded centers so far. You saw early in the game against Oklahoma City, them just attacking him with Steven Adams, and it was going really well. I'm not really sure why they got away from it, other than probably that Mahinmi came in. But so this is another one here against Embiid where I think you could see an uptick in minutes for Mahinmi, which makes me less interested in Thomas Bryant.
I didn't think of it. Perhaps it was some sort of Scott Brooks revenge.
What?
Scott Brooks, because he used to coach the Thunder?
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can think of. Otherwise, they should not have won that one on the road. We've got intriguing options here at this top of the center spot. We have Joel Embiid at $11,000. We have Karl Anthony, and he's going against Washington. We have Karl Anthony Towns, tougher matchup going against Steven Adams. He's at $10,500. And then you got Nikola Jokic going against Hassan Whiteside. Jokic he's on the road, but he's $9,800. Amongst that trio of top shelf options, do you like any of them, or do you want to drop down and see if we can find some underpriced centers? Because hey, it is DraftKings.
I love Joel Embiid. Obviously the price tag is It's expensive, but it's just such a good spot here against Washington. There's really no reason that he shouldn't have a monster game. So the only argument against him would, again, just be how deep this position is, and that, you can save money, and, even if it's to Towns or Jokic, you save a little bit there. But you also have, DeAndre Ayton in a phenomenal spot. You have Whiteside in a perfectly fine spot. You have Willie Cauley-Stein in a phenomenal spot. So you really, you don't have to pay up at center. But if you do, then I love trying to get Embiid in your lineups.
Here's a one-for-one comparison across the different positions. We've got on Yahoo, the three most expensive players are Russell Westbrook and Joel Embiid, both at 52, and then Karl-Anthony Towns at 50. Would you go with Embiid over Westbrook, knowing that we only get one center and one utility? Reminder, it's 3 points for blocks and steals, and there's no double-double bonus or anything like that.
Yeah, I think it's like neck and neck between them.
Okay.
Yeah, it's literally like a coin flip for me between Westbrook and Embiid here.
Okay. And I just bring in, because all of a sudden, sometimes on Yahoo, they have centers that are very nicely priced if you start looking in the mid-20s. Like, for example, DeAndre Ayton against Sacramento, Hassan Whiteside against Denver, they're 29-26, Willie Cauley-Stein's 26, Steven Adams 25. So there's a lot of discounted guys. So oftentimes it's hard because you want to use that for some savings. You don't go for really a $10 player at that position. You usually use that for your shooting guard or small forward. But that's going to be an interesting one between Westbrook and Embiid there. Wrapping it up as we look down for some of that aforementioned discount value. Anybody down here? We've got, Enes Kanter. That'll be a back-to-back going against Golden State. 5,500. The price is coming down, but again, he's not in the starting lineup. Pascal Siakam, 6,700. Dwayne Dedmon going against Toronto. Tough matchup. They'll need him to be man in the pivot. Any here in that mid-tier or lower that catch your eye?
Well, actually, you mentioned Kanter, and it made me think about it for a second. But Vonleh, obviously we should have talked about it at power forward, but he's center eligible in DraftKings too. He's been very, very good whenever Kanter's not on the floor, and that even includes his time alongside Luke Kornet. So it's not like we're just talking about when he's playing center, but he sees an increase in usage, he sees an increase in assist percentage, and a huge increase in rebounding percentage. But Kanter has historically really been unable to stay on the floor against Golden State. It wouldn't really surprise me if we see very, very limited Kanter here and you get more time at the 5 from Noah Vonleh. And it's kind of nice because if that's not the case, like let's say I'm wrong and Vonleh plays 32 minutes at power forward, he's still a perfectly fine play. But if he does play more minutes at center, those are just more productive minutes for him, and it would make him an even better play.
Yeah, and one of the main reasons I bring it up is it feels like Kanter kind of, worked his way out of his pouting and his malaise. The last 2 games he's played 27 and 20 minutes. This is off the bench, but he had the 27 minutes. He had a 16 and 15 against the Lakers, and he had a 17 and 12 against Denver. Both of those were on the road. I just bring that up because I think God only knows what the Knicks are doing right now, but they're content to let him sit on the bench. But if it's the right matchup and we get him for 25 minutes and his price keeps falling into the mid to low 5,000s and stays there, Adam, we could pick some spots here and get like a real player, not the guessing game of Boban, but a real good play coming out of this. So I think he's going to be someone we're going to want to keep an eye on.
Yeah, it's just that he's basically been incapable of defending the pick and roll against Golden State like his entire career.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. Good point there. Not saying for against the Golden State one. That I agree with. That.
Yeah.
Horrid matchup for him. But if we find those matchups where like, yeah, this one he should get 20, 25 minutes at the price, all of a sudden you're going to have people that have been game long watching and not go for him, and maybe we can jump on something good from that standpoint. Caveat, as always, it's the Knickerbockers. Any final thoughts before we get on out of here for our Tuesday?
No, should be a pretty fun slate. I'll have the deep dive article out sometime around 3:30 in the afternoon.
All right. Reminder, we say it on all the shows, but if you want to use the promo code EARLYBIRD over there on Awesemo.com, you can get any premium package that you so desire free for 7 days. Just go into Awesemo.com. Click the Join tab, select a package. Make sure you get one with the Fantasy Cruncher add-on. Use the promo code EARLYBIRD, all one word. It's the last field you will have to fill out after putting in your information, and you will get 7 free days. The billing doesn't start till after 7 days. If you cancel within those 7 days, that's perfectly fine. You're not going to want to. But if you do, that's all right. You don't want that recurring fee. You won't get charged. You'll still keep your access. But we're going to hook you in here. It's a lot of fun in Slack, which is also part of these 7-day memberships. Plus, you get all of the fun projections, ownership projections, premium articles, etc. behind the paywall. You've seen what we put out in front of the paywall. It's good stuff, the really good stuff behind the paywall. Plus, you get access to everybody in Slack. Even Osimo himself is in there in Slack. So with that, gamers, we're going to get on out of here. You can follow Adam at ShipMyMoneyDFS. I am at EMACDFS, and it is Osimo_COM over on the Twitter machine. With that, gamers, good luck.